Hello mate and welcome back to Let's Code Season 6. It's time to get serious guys. We've got a really seriously good engine going at the moment where we can now create rooms from a prefab with items included. But we still haven't actually got any code in place to enable us to use those items. And what I was thinking was rather than having an overly complicated system where we have to press different buttons to use different items, we could just have the interface operate where if you're standing next to an item and if you try to walk into that item, it will automatically interact with the item, i.e. it will pick it up if it can be picked up, or it will use it if it can be used. So that's what we're going to start off with in today's video. So in order for us to be able to see if we've actually used any items, we need to be able to track some of our player stats. So as you can see here, I've written a screen here that has dual possibilities or dual purposes. First one is to display key information, i.e. what is our food level, what's our drink level, and what's our hit points. But it also has a timer at the bottom of it, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So what we've got is we've got screen player HUD, and within that screen we have a frame. The frame is located at position 0, 0, and it has a size of 1920 by 50. In other words, it's a strip along the top of the screen that's 50 pixels wide. And we're also setting a color background 0007. 000 is black, 7 is the opacity. So it's going to be probably a 50% opacity, just slightly below 50% opacity, black strip along the top of the screen. And then we've got two horizontal boxes, 2H boxes. The first one is smack dab in the middle of the bar, and that's going to contain the name of the room that we're in. Text, format, game, current room, get name. So that's just the name of the current room that we're in. Then the next hitbox, or the next H box, sorry, is on the right hand side. That's what X-Align 1.0 means. And then we've got three pieces of text with different colors. We've got our food, we've got our text for our drink, and we've got our food and our hit points. Sorry, I've got all my models worded up then. Food, drink, and hit points. As you can see, each one's got a different color. Now for the timer command. Timer operates like a button in that it will wait for a certain period of time and then it will return an action from the screen, just as if you clicked on a button. In the case of this timer, what it's doing is every 1 second it is running a update method within the player class. As you can see, function game.player.update. That method doesn't take any arguments, so we don't need anything else in the parentheses there. And then we've set repeats to true, i.e. we want this to continually run every second. We don't want it to just run once and stop. So what does the update method within the player class actually look like? At the moment, this is what it looks like. All it's got is two methods, two functions. One of them removes 0.1 from food and one removes 0.1 from drink. This is a rough thing. This is not going to be like this for the rest of the game. This is just to prove that the system works and it's actually going to operate. So what will happen is as the player is in the room, whether they're moving or not, this will operate. Every 10 seconds they will lose 1 point from their food and from their drink. Now obviously we know that depending on what's in the room, this will change. This might be more, this might be less. We could have a saturation thing like they have in Minecraft where after you've eaten for a certain period of time, you don't lose any food. All of those things that we can add later on. But for now, we've just got this really basic method in our player class called update. And every second, this takes away 0.1 from both our food and our drink. And that's all there is to it. Naturally, we need to add that screen to our main UI. So as you can see, I've got use player HUD. But now as our player HUD has information within it, i.e. it shows what room we're in, we can remove the line that originally showed what room we're in from the main UI. So now all our main UI does is it shows us the press E to use exit message when we are on an exit. And as you can see, I've added an align property to it. So now it appears near the bottom at the center of the screen. Just makes it look a little bit more organized. Now we're down to the nitty gritty. In our move player method within our room class, we now need to add a little bit of extra code. So as you can see at the very bottom of the method, after where it says if self.getMatrix equals 0, then we'll remove the player, remove it to the next thing. what we're going to say is elif is subclass type blah, 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 blah. So let's talk about what this blah, 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 blah is, because we need to make sense of it. You need to understand what's happening. Because we're using an abstract base class for our game objects, what we need to check is the object at the position we're trying to move to a subclass of the game object abstract base class? In other words, does the thing that we're trying to walk into come from the game object parent class? If it does, then we're going to use the pickup method from within that object, and we wrote the pickup method way back at the beginning of the season, and then we're going to replace what's in that position in the grid with a 0. So we'll pick it up and then we will replace it with 0. Now, if you recall, pickup method checks to see if the item can be picked up, and if it cannot be picked up, it will use it instead. So we don't need to have any ifs, ands or buts in this. We just call the pickup method from this area, and then the actual object itself will decide, do I need to be picked up or do I need to be used? And then it will just wipe it from the matrix by replacing it with a 0. And that is what effectively is an empty space in our matrix, if you remember correctly. Now, because our health potions can be picked up, we're not really going to get any feedback from the game that we've actually successfully picked it up, other than the object disappearing from the screen, which is fine, but I would like to have some kind of message log that actually repeats back to the player what's happened. So that's what we're going to work on next. We're actually going to add some kind of messaging system that will show a list of messages on the screen and will basically give us feedback, so we can help us with debugging as well. So in the player class, what we're going to do is at the very bottom of our fields, you can see I've added a new list called log. Self.log equals, and then the 2 square brackets is our way of telling Python that it's an empty list. And then within the class, the player class, we've got a new method called add message, and then brackets self comma message. So again, we're telling an instance that we want to add whatever is passed as a parameter, and then we're just going to append our list with the message. Now, we could add this to the start of the list, but to be honest, it's neither here nor there which way we do it, because we can actually choose to read the list in whatever order we want to when we get to the screen that displays the messages, as you will find out in a minute. But this is all we're doing. So we've got the self.log property within the class, and then at the bottom of the class we have the method add message, and then that's all we need. We can now tell Python call this method and add whatever message we like, and it will add it to the list. Now, the screen to display these messages is here, so you can create a new file, call it log or message log.rpy, whatever you want really, and we're just going to give it a screen log, and then we have a frame in there that's positioned on the left hand side of the screen, slightly down from the top. That's what a line 0, 0 and 0.1 means. And we're giving an XY size of 300 pixels wide by 250 pixels tall. We don't want it to be huge. We don't want it to dominate the screen. We just want a nice small box that's going to show some messages. And then we're going to give it a background of 000,9. So again, it's going to be a slightly less opaque, slightly transparent black box. And then we're going to use the command side R, which we're going to give an area of 1, 0, 290 by 240. So a slightly smaller area than our frame, and then we give it a viewport called message log. You don't really, I mean, the ID is irrelevant at this point, and we're saying that it's draggable and it's mouse wheelable. In other words, if you were to put the mouse over the top of this message log and it's bigger than the screen, you can scroll through all of the old messages if you so choose. But this is basically a scrollable little window that will display all of the messages in it. And then within that viewport, we've created a view box. We give it a spacing of 5. And then it's just going to run through the list of messages in player.log, and you can see for message in reversed game.player.log. So it's actually going to start at the end of the list and work its way backwards. So the first message that will be displayed at the top of our list will be the most recent one we get. And then as you can see, text, and then we've got a dot format message size 12, because we want these messages to be pretty small because it's quite a small window. And it doesn't need to be, as I said, hugely dominating the interface. We just need a little bit of feedback there that something has happened, so that the player doesn't walk over an item and then think, nothing's happened. You know that if we picked up the item in the inventory, then we know it's going to be in there. And we are going to add an inventory interface some point in the very near future. At the moment, maybe we'll just have it so that it's a 2x2 grid, which shows the icons of the items that are in the inventory, and when you click on them it uses them, or whatever. We'll see how it goes, but for now this will show the message log in game so that we can see what's happening. And then of course, to actually add the messages to our interface, we need a method for doing so. So in the use method of our game object, you can see that I've got player.addMessage and then used brackets restoring brackets hit points, and then the first brackets are replaced by the object's name, and then the second will be replaced by the object's amount. And this is obviously for the health potion for when we use it, and you can do the same thing for when you have in the pickup method. If you pick up the object and put it in your inventory instead, you can just change this method to say picked up item and then use self.getName as the argument. And you can basically add this line of code to every single one of your game objects in their use methods, which will give you some feedback that the item has been used and picked up. And that just makes life much easier. So here we are in the game. As you can see, our window's on the left hand side, and if I move over our item and move into it, it now says health potion added to inventory. If I move to the next room where there's 2 more, I can do the same thing again and the same thing again. As you can see, the messages were added to the log, so that is now functioning awesome. We're ready to move on to the next stage, but for this video, that is it. Another whistle stop video, nice and short, gets to the point. Hopefully you found it useful. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. But until then, you take damn good care of yourselves, all right? Bye-bye.